All right, guys, number one Marmaduke fan here, and this is the continuation of my look at two very different things. One very manly, one very girly. But I'm kind of arguing that they're both a little trashy, but there's a similar, I don't know, kind of heart of gold running through both of them. And both of them contain things you could grab from to maybe build on or do it your own way. So in the first video, to sum up the thesis, I had a commenter say if they could erase one idea out of history, it would be the hero's journey, because they felt like it oversimplified all storytelling to just a few basic plot points. And if you reduce a story to a few basic plot points, the hero gets the lightsaber from the wizard and saves the girl from the dark wizard, then you're missing all of what actually makes the story interesting. It's not interesting to describe Star Wars as 6 really basic plot points. What makes Star Wars interesting is the execution. It's not interesting to describe this as big hero person meets girl, saves girl from knight person. What makes Conan the Barbarian interesting is the execution and the purple prose and some of the peculiar aspects of Conan's character, that he's a barbarian who doesn't understand culture. Captive Hearts, it's not interesting to describe it as big, strong man meets girl. You need some more details than that. The details tend to be what actually get you invested and enjoying the story as you go through it, even though it is important to look at basic plots. So I'm kind of looking at both of these as two very different things, which may have some common little elements I think are worth looking at. So I'm also really interested in trying to persuade Western comics readers to read manga and manga readers to read Western comics. And what's kind of funny is these are both hard sells. This was kind of a lame Conan comic, and I really enjoy Captive Hearts, but it's completely ridiculous, and the author knows it's ridiculous. So I don't know if I would hold these up as the best ones to jump onto if you've never read a Western comic or never read a manga. But they're both charming in their own kind of campy, silly way. And I think one thing that's helping Matsuri Hino's Captive Hearts is she understands her audience, and the love of her audience and the appreciation of her audience is infectious. Now, she'll express this in kind of a cutesy-bootsy way, but she's not just being cutesy-bootsy. She's being genuinely appreciative of her customers and what they've done for her. So, gee, I wonder what that represents. So what's one of the interesting things about Captive Hearts is she says she likes racy images, but the actual content of the story is, for the most part, it's very chaste and very moral and very traditional. Like the idea of Suzuka is she's from China, and so she comes from this very conservative culture where holding hands is a taboo for unmarried people. But she's into Megumi, Megumi's into her, and so they're gradually becoming more affectionate to each other, which causes her some internal turmoil because it goes against the culture of her upbringing, but she does love him and she is interested in him. It also literally has him picking her up and putting her over his shoulder exactly like this, and they make a joke out of it where she says, I could just walk out with you, and he says, yeah, but this makes me feel like more of a man. So the comedy of it comes from like this weird dynamic they're in where his family has been cursed to serve her family. Oh my, she's a conservative innocent girl, but she's the mistress, and he's a tough irresponsible guy, but he's the manservant. It's so risque. That's the silly aspect of it, but then there's actually some heart to it. So let's dive in and I'll show you some of the heart. So the fourth volume, it's all because of everyone who's supported me. So all of these manga use these editorial boxes to kind of like build rapport and thank readers. And some of them are just like, cutesy-bootsy little silly stories about cats and dogs. And others really reveal really interesting tidbits, I think, about the creative process and how the industry works. So I always look at these for little gems about, basically I think the Japanese manga and animation industry is running laps around, Disney animation and the West at this point. So I'm always interested in like how they think about storytelling and how they think about their industry. So this is her thinking of her Chinese adopted mother, Now listen, an unmarried woman should never go into a man's room without good reason. And then she says, I'm sorry, I didn't keep my promise. Your daughter is immoral. So she didn't go into his room for like a bad reason. He just wanted to show her something and talk to her about, how meaningful she was to him. But she has this guilt, and this makes her an interesting character. It's very on the nose, but I'm kind of invested in her because I understand. I understand her morals. I understand who she is as a person and why she's kind of like been out of shape about things. Was there another comment here? There is. Okay. About the color illustrations in this volume. I sometimes wonder if the Japanese manga artist ever listens to the English people reviewing their work and thinks it's weird. But anyway, these are illustrations I got to do for the cover of La La DX. I'll show you them. So this one is what she's talking about, and this one of Suzuka in bunny ears. Where's the bunny ear one? Bunny ears. I can't find the bunny ear one. There it is. Okay. And one in bunny ears. All right. That's what she's talking about. The theme was incorporating animals into the cover, so I decided to try it out with doves and tropical fish, sweat emoji. But my assistant came up with the idea of putting Suzuka in bunny ears. It was really fun to draw. Bunny! I really love these pictures. All right. So, yeah, she is being cutesy-bootsy, but she is enthusiastic, and she's very... I 100% believe that she has a blast drawing her characters in bunny ears. Now, a lot of the comedy comes from, teenagers and their pent-up emotions. So their relationship's going great, and then Suzuka says, oh no, Megumi's always treating me like I'm number one, but I never get to treat Megumi like he's number one. I'm going back to China. And then Megumi's like, oh, I need you, please don't go. And then they almost sleep together. But then he kind of like stops himself and says, I'm not allowed to lay a hand on the princess, but I almost took away her innocence. So at first I was kind of like cheering and saying, yeah, good sexual ethics, good morality. But then they do like a silly thing where it's like, oh, it's the magic curse stopping him. So this was something I wasn't entirely on board with because it felt a bit out of character for her. Like her character has been, she comes from this very conservative culture. She's even a little hesitant about holding hands. So why is she suddenly like jumping into bed with him? Sex is for marriage, you two. But I think it's still ultimately... I defend this usage of depicting like teenagers almost having sex because they love each other, they're clearly into each other, they can't keep their hands off each other, and then they have this like big moral temptation. Will we have sex? And I don't like how there's like a plot contrivance that stops them. I'd like it better if there was like if they were kind of like had a moral principle. Like it'd make perfect sense for her to explain her, kind of like her background and why she can't do this. I don't know. So not 100%. I'm not 100% digging it, but still, I really like when a romance uses sex in a way that I think teaches something important about sex and isn't just like, oh my, we fell on the bed, it's so risque. Generally speaking, the story has a really good, it teaches a really good lesson about the importance of waiting and not hopping into bed instantly. So after that, another good comment. Lately I've been getting a lot of questions about what I use for my color art. I usually use Copic markers, but in the beginning I used something different for Captive Hearts. I also use Novell color ink, burnt sienna or sepia or natural gray for the main pages. For the paper, I use Comic Kentboard. Sometimes I'll use other color ink, watercolors, acrylics, and colored pencils. What's interesting about this artist is she was a traditionally trained Japanese artist, I think, like fine painting, and then she broke into manga, so she kind of had a different background than a lot of people. I didn't want to skip this comment. This is interesting. I think I've started using colors a bit differently ever since I went to China. Yeah, I think it might be temporary, but I feel like I can't work in color like I did before. I think it was the influence from my China trip. Images like desert nations, space, trees, vast land, and wind mixing with music are in my head. I felt even more connected to Captive Hearts after going to China. I think I might want to travel more. My China travel diary is in the back of the book. Check it out. So Suzuka is from China, and so the manga artist gets to make a trip to China kind of as a research trip to get reference images and get a feel for the culture. That's great. She talked a lot about being hospitalized, and it's not clear why, but the implication was it was from overwork. I like when manga artists get to take a break and like have just like a nice cultural experience apart from cranking out a million pages of great manga art. Take a break, you guys. You're already winning in the fight with the Western animation and comics market. You don't need to kill yourselves just to make me all this great manga. But I thought that was interesting that she was informed by her trip to China and that she actually went to China to kind of add a little bit of realism to her story. Now, one interesting thing about Matsuri Hino is she does a lot of side stories. She'll take a break from the action to like show you, hey, here's the dad's backstory and here's the mom's backstory. And I think maybe it's because she knows that this is a silly story and she doesn't want to stretch it out forever, so she tries to find like some other interesting angle to keep it fresh. But she goes back in time to tell a little story about them as children. I've come this far drawing captive hearts because of all the readers who support me. I've gotten so much joy in continuing this series, and now as I prepare to write the final volume, I really want to do my best for you. I want to make sure you can actually see it. I'll try to make it a really enjoyable story, so I'm going to think long and hard about the best way to end it. Or I'll just flip a coin and see what happens. Yeah. I'm finally breaking into the core of what I envisioned Captive Hearts to be from when it was serialized and how I had planned it. I feel like a countdown has started inside of me towards the final volume. I'm not sure what'll happen, but I want to keep enjoying it until the very end. By the way, I had a lot of fun writing these 3 extra stories. Someone told me they could feel it seeping out from the pages. Laugh. This is my last column for this volume, but I wanted to say that, even though I haven't answered fan mail in a while, I'm definitely reading it. If you have any comments, please send them to me. See you next time, Matsuri Hino. So something I like about her is she's kind of been self-aware this whole time that this is a silly manga. She calls it a ridiculous manga, and I like that she's planning to end it and stick the landing. Like, I was just getting to the point of this where I'm thinking, I don't want to read 20 volumes of this. And then boom, I'm getting ready to end it. Oh boy, and she's building up to the ending. They're going to solve the problem. Great. I love that she actually has an ending in mind and she's willing to end it. That's great. Fantastic. And so much enthusiasm. They do some like cool background stuff that kind of fleshes out the characters. One of my commenters, I mentioned that there's a trans character in this, and I actually thought it was an effective use of a trans character. And one of my commenters kind of had the thought that it's really interesting how manga introduced a lot of gay, lesbian, and trans characters into the Western market, and now like the left-wing academy is trying to deconstruct all that and call it all problematic. And I feel like there's a video in there somewhere, but I don't want to get demonetized, so great comment. I'll come back to that another time. But there's an actual trans character who has a personality, doesn't just call Megumi a transphobe all the time. They actually have a good back and forth relationship where they can talk to each other and roast each other a bit, and they both add something to the relationship. So good job. An actual character with flaws and a personality. How about that? There's a nice little diary about going to China with her friend to get all the photos and having the silly Billy tour guide. And there's this sweet little story about her first autograph signing where she changes her style to like a really freehand ink brush style. And just like, it's just like a little diary of, how I felt, bending over to give all the autographs. And I'm sorry I couldn't do sketches. They said I could only do autographs. There is so much love and appreciation and almost just kind of like wonder there. And she got to wear bunny ears. So they have this silly Billy personality in a lot of these shoujo girls manga. I think some of that is on purpose because they know their audience are, little 13-year-old girls who like cute stuff. And so they play up what it is they know their audience love. But I believe she sincerely loves this. She's not affecting silly billiness for the sake of affecting silly billiness. I 100% believe that she loves this silly billy stuff too, because it exudes from her art and her writing. I guess the overall point is it's not enough to have problematic stuff in your story, but if you don't have problematic stuff in your story because you're scared of being called problematic, what you're actually probably doing is stripping something really important out of it. Maybe there's like one problematic scene I want to show you that illustrates it nicely. Actually, you know what? Just read it. Like you'll see it. You'll know it when you see it. Matsuri Hino is a person who's not afraid of having big, strong men. She likes big, strong men. She gets that it's not problematic to have a big, strong man who's assertive because she understands the difference between being assertive and being evil. And Conan illustrates that. He is assertive with women. He'll growl at the women and maybe make a crass comment, but he doesn't force himself on the women. Therefore, you can interpret it based on the context of the world and the story. That's it. All right, I'm number one Marmaduke fan. This was weird. These do really kind of fit with each other. Read manga if you are a Westaboo. Read Western comics if you are a weeaboo. You gotta trust me on this. Have you tried a Western comic for the first time because of this channel? Have you tried a manga for the first time because of this channel? Let me know in the comment section below. With that, I'm number one Marmaduke fan. I love you guys, and I'll catch you later. Boop, 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 ba-doo-doo.